Blog Talk Radio.
Black dot, black dot, black dot, black dot, black dot. The people who had the bloodline of the gods were able to reign upon earth. The people who had psychic power and the ability to work with the animal kingdom, to work with all the various species and kingdoms on earth and honored them. The people who were able to look forward to everlasting life because they knew that the soul could not die and that the soul was threatened again by a soulless wanderer who had come into our system and even caused more and more upon their own venerated God to help them by keeping them in touch with the universal prime creator.
Yes, I am wisdom in the flesh, drop of five like it's a test study. My lessons daily, so I'm sharper than the rest. Nappy hair, honey skin, be that real while y'all pretend. I'm so fresh and super clean like that boy A.J. Benjamin. Came from Chocolate City, it be that nitty gritty. If I told my story now, y'all supposed to say it's such a pity. Y'all ain't know I am supreme, came from galaxies unseen. Landed 1981 onto this earthly terrain. Strange new land, where man on land, freedom was banned. Will prevail over peace, knowledge what I'm saying. Had the new world order on the dollar. Some school dropouts be shining brighter than the scholars. Illuminati making deals to seal the fate of human beings. While folks ramming through this life unsure of what they should be seeking. I'ma give it to you raw, unadulterated. And y'all be fiending for the truth, trying to get your mind elevated.
If one is to understand the great mystery, one must study all its aspects. If you wish to become a complete and wise leader, you must embrace a larger view of the force. Only through me can you achieve a power greater than any leader. Use my knowledge, I beg you.
I am supreme, let me tell y'all what that means. Be devil shaking quiver in the presence of the queen. Logic for ancient memories, wolf I season my delivery. Rock a show and make a Christian change his name to L.I.M.E. Next day, a different battle, smudging gins from the shadow. Defy the laws of physics, meditate and split an atom. I traverse the globe over continents and many seas. Never graduated college, but I still got my degrees. What y'all know about that third eye vision? Tells the real from what is it? Black dot in the center of your brain. Cataclysm, cause the body's far from partners with the mind. Fight for an empty shell that was sure to leave behind. Yes, I'm that black essence. Can grow like adolescence. Can say some wisdom from a foolish man and give the sage a lesson. Official like the cardinal. My vocals are applaudable. Listen to them well, they're nothing less than oral blessings.
By distortion, deletion, deception, and disguise, you've altered written records from the cosmos to our skies. You've reconstructed universes and summoned even hell, and there seems to be no end to the lies your mouth can tell. What you view on graphs and prisms, what you see in lens and scope seems too staggering to your mind and ego brain, and so to cope, you'll distort the very heavens, you'll change the smallest beast, and there seems to be no end to let your fame to cease, and yet you know within, from the most unto the least, that your time is running out, and your lives, they soon must cease.
Peace to you and yours, family. Welcome to Know the Ledge Radio. You are now rocking with the best. This is your host, the Red Pill. I am joined by my co-host, the Blue Pill. Peace. What's good?
Peace to you and yours. We in the building.
No
This
doubt.
is another historic, monumental, explosive episode. You know what I'm saying? We are standing on the cusp of history. Okay, this particular evening, we will be opening the gates on this Scorpion new moon, bringing back the brother Peter Moon.
Yes, indeed. And tonight we are joined by our special co-host, the world-renowned, world-respected Dr. Delbert Blair.
Yes, indeed. Peace to the scholars.
We are also joined by the world-respected, world-renowned TARIK Bey. Give it up. Then to complete the cipher of the Moorish Roundtable, we are welcoming our brother, your brother, the world-renowned, world-respected Hakim Bey. Hello. Do you want to quickly get into what today is, the significance of this moon, and the powerful resonance of this day in case the family is not aware?
Okay, well, we are, in the throes of the energy of the Scorpion new moon of Scorpion, dealing with regeneration, transformation, you know what I'm saying? Also, as Sister Myra always wisely states, when you're dealing with a particular energy, you also have to take into account its opposite. So as we're standing in the throes of Scorpion energy, be mindful also of Taurian energy, you know what I'm saying? And that Taurian energy is dealing with finances. So this is a great time to be embarking on new endeavors, you know what I'm saying? It's because it's a new moon, it's a great time to be planting and putting those seeds into the ground, whether figuratively or literally, you know what I mean? And the energy is available to support those particular endeavors. This is also the third day of the seventh day, you know what I'm saying? We came out of the quote-unquote Mayan sixth night on the on Tuesday, I believe, the election night. Yes. It was on the 2nd. And we stepped into the 7th day, which, is going to bring us directly into 2012 on the 3rd. So we're standing in the throes of that particular energy also. So all of these are transformative energies. They're very positive energies, you know what I mean? So we're talking about positive change. And although things around you might not seem as such, you have to find where that positivity lies, and you got to tap into that particular frequency because that energy is available.
No doubt. Definitely. All right, so we got a jam-packed show tonight. We're going to jump right into it. I want
to remind the family, too, this is also the time that you prepare your new moon invocations, okay? We don't do wishing. To God is to invoke, so we do invocations, and, you should handwrite, not type, but handwrite 10 invocations dealing with what you want to bring forth, manifest, and bring down. You know what I mean? So 11:53 is actually when this particular new moon kicks in. The energy is present now. It will be present all day tomorrow. You can check my Facebook page out for the note. There's some powerful information up there. I do recommend that the family take advantage of it, you know what I'm saying, because there's no time like now. Peace.
No doubt. Indeed. All right, so we're going to jump right to the switchboards. Before we introduce our guest for tonight, we are going to bring in one of the family, one of our brothers, the brother Coach Kayer, calling from a 336-587. Peace, God.
Peace to the family. Peace, God.
Peace. God, how you?
Man, I'm blessed by the best, too sexy to be stressed, and I'm worth my weight in diamonds and gold. Get it right.
There you go.
Just like everybody on here. First off, I want to come and say, not only are we on the cusp of history, but what we don't realize is we make history every time we come on the air. So I'm happy to be here with the family making history. We have to start realizing that we are making history. As we studying it, we are actually making it. 20 years from now, they will be talking about you having a show that is phenomenal with Delbert Blair, Hakim Bey, and Taj. Come on, man. Come on. You got Pippen. You got Jordan all on the same squad at one night.
Yes, indeed.
It's beautiful to be here because the subject that I want to talk about real quick is ego. Because normally in our past history, we've had too much ego to have those greats on a call at one time, and we made history tonight by having them on the call because just that alone shows the growth that we have of no ego and how ego has destroyed the unity of our Moorish movement, not individuals. You know what I'm saying? It's not about disunity. It's about too much ego. So I'm going to set the record straight because, my teacher always says set the record straight. And there was an incident, I normally have my show an hour before you all have your shows on Tuesday. And this week I wasn't able to get there at 8. So I had the Aura Myra on. I had to have it at 9, but that was the only time I could have it. And so do you know somebody called me the next day and was like, why don't you change? Because you're starting something, you're competing with the pills and it doesn't look good and this could be animosity. And I was like, what? I said, yo, who are you talking to? That's my family. That's my family.
Wow.
So on the line right now, everyone listening, realize that the blue pill and the red pill is my family, La Fam, before Blog Talk was created. Before Blog Talk.
Like
we're going on the record right now. You know what I'm saying? And they can come on my show at 8 o'clock and say we're doing a show at 9. Most people's ego is too big for that. Well, they can't be on your show because they have a show right after yours. I plug everyone on my show. I wouldn't give a damn who. If we having it at the same time, you come on my show at 8 o'clock and be doing a show at 8 and be like, everybody come over to my show. Because we all got something to bring to the table. And as we let go of our egos, then more of us can eat. So I want to rest before any more rumors get started or before anything else goes on. This all family. This all love. We're working on a larger scheme of things than me than somebody having a show at the same hour. There is no competition. Okay? Y'all, I want to just put that out there.
That show was monumental. That show was monumental that you had with the sister, and it was complimentary because there's things that we touched on astrologically that particular night that she complimented, and she also finished with the wisdom that only she can bring as the mama. So we have to find a balance. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's information, like their phone wiring and their cable, doesn't come through one fiber optic. There are a lot of different wires for a particular reason because everything can't fit through one channel, and it's the same thing with Blog Talk. I'm sure there's shows that are on right now coincidingly with this particular show. Some people will listen to this live and they'll go into the archive. Family, there's no need to create the air of competitiveness. You know what I'm saying? It's about unified fronts. It's not about competition. You know what I mean? By us saying that we the best, you rocking with the best, it don't mean that we better than nobody. That's just an affirmation for us as to what it is we're doing. It's also an affirmation for yourself, so give yourself a hand. So I want to say thank you, brother. Continue doing what you're doing. We'll always be supportive of everything. Indeed.
Peace to the family, and the show's returning to 8 next week. Not because there's no beef, but because I love 8. I'm on my solar biology. I'm May 17th. 1 and 7 is 8. That's my hour. And everyone is welcome to start your own show and come at 8. But, man, y'all take it away. Keep making history. We are rocking with the best. Allah is the greatest. Peace.
Peace out. All right. So let's go ahead and begin bringing in our guest for tonight. I'm going to open up the first phone line. It's from a 708-422. Peace.
Yes, hello there. This is Blair. How are you?
Evening. Hello, Dr. Blair.
Blue pill and red pill. I'm doing fine listening to what you've been presenting, doing some reading here on the side of some latest news that I got, and also very grateful to be in the company of the two other brothers that you have there. And although I don't use it often, I am definitely Bey.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So Dr. Delbert Blair Bey, welcome, Islam. Pleased to have you.
Yes, and thank you so much for having me. Let me just say in a brief session here, we're at a time on our planet that it is just impossible to believe the incredulous, the ludicrous type things that are happening. You're having snow where there should be 100-degree temperatures. You have many alligator, turtle, and crocodile species dying by the millions all over the world, which is very interesting when you see that they are the ancestors of a spawn that has really decimated our planet and done a lot of harm to us and to the Olmecs. You've got heat waves everywhere. You've got disappearing people. You've got earthquakes and oil gushing out of our planet everywhere. With the animal species disappearing, there are now plagues that are coming as these carcasses are beginning to rot, and they're not telling you about it. The people are beginning to see shadow people everywhere. They're seeing things on highways and in the skies that don't seem to be there, yet they see them. And now you've got swarms of Templars, because underneath and through the ring of fire, now you've got swarms of volcano Templars. There's in Alaska and in Indonesia and California. Underground tentacles that reach underneath the Cascadia subduction zone. This is a very, very, very dangerous time. And as you well said, with the new moon starting it, what happens when the full moon hits? So I'm simply saying, hopefully this show will go on record as a warning and also as a way of trying to get around some of the things that are happening, because before we conclude, let's never forget the power of the mind of the universal creator and the power of our minds when we use them collectively. We have no time to fight. If we can begin to use concentrated thought, we can still avert that. If not, then we'll be using the same technology of the Dracons that are causing most of these problems now.
Definitely. Indeed. No doubt. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bring in our other co-host for tonight from the 646-245. Peace.
Peace, Islam and peace.
Oh.
How's everyone?
Islam, Hakim.
As well.
You're doing better now.
That's
Welcome
good.
aboard.
That's good. Oh yeah. Well, Dr. Blair done set it off on a high note, and that's what it's about. Like he said, applying our minds collectively, as we doing now when we meditate together. All those things are powerful. I know from experience that this is real. So I just want to say peace. And Islam and peace to Brother Taj and Dr. Blair and everyone in the house. You know what I'm saying?
Yourself,
and peace to you too.
If you may, brother, do you want to give a quick introduction to the family?
About what?
About you.
Oh, different things. Yeah, y'all know for years, we've been doing this for years, going way back. But it's hard to really find a beginning, you know what I'm saying? But where to even begin? Coming up in the Bronx,
I would say
with the whole. I got to start from there. You know what I'm saying? Because that was important. That was the beginning of the whole culture. We never thought that hip hop was gonna be the way it was. We was just young. We was just mad into the music. That was our life at that time. There was no Rapper's Delight. There was none of that. It was nothing on the radio. This was straight up our culture. The art form, the graffiti, that was our art form. The music, the beats, we had it down to a science. We would go into our parents' records collections, and we knew just from looking at the record whether or not it had a break. We knew the breaks were darker than the rest of the album. So the minute we seen that dark circle, we said, a break. We was finding breaks like crazy. We brought their whole record collection back to life through hip hop. At that time, we was just straight up in the parks, straight up crews, just going from one neighborhood to other neighborhoods, just breakdancing. And so that was like a very important beginning, because to me that was very important. That set the tone for everything I would do later on in terms of being strictly dealing with our people. At that time, hip hop, that was just us. That was what they call Generation X. That was just our way of life. They say that we rebelled against. We was the latchkey kids. We raised ourselves because our parents was not at home or working 2 jobs or whatever the case may be, or whatever. We was basically raising ourselves in the streets. So we had a whole different perspective. We didn't want to have nothing to do with the Europeans' whole authority, whole structure. We created our own. We didn't want to deal with it. So that's the very beginning of hip hop, and from there, we must transform it and use that energy, use that culture that we created in a positive way. But that's how it began. It began for the simple fact that we didn't want no part of that thing. We loved what we was into more than their thing.
Right.
And
you
so
created
that
a
was
renaissance.
Right, that was very important, man. It was powerful at that time because we were still catching stuff from the elders. Remember when the movement, after the 60s and things that happened, at least with us on, in New York City, it was, that's the time when, it was deep. It was because it was like say for instance in the Bronx when I was coming up, it was like tenements, But that time, this is when the gangs was out. But it wasn't. It was a different type of thing. We had block organizations, stuff like that, and it was a different type of things. But I knew this was a reality part of it. At that time, the South Bronx was burning down. Landlords was paying kids to burn down buildings so they could collect insurance on it. So it was a crazy time at that time. You had my neighborhood, Bronx. You had the Black Spades, the Black Assassins, Savage Nomads, the Peacemakers. That's how I was in the Bronx. So when you was calling my neighborhood, it wasn't a question of whether or not you was in one of them. You was in. It was what division was you in. My neighborhood was mostly Black Spades and stuff like that. So we came up young. But then what happened was that was that male. A lot of it was that male competitive energy, and so they began to be transformed. Instead of us killing ourselves on the streets, I remember kids used to come in our neighborhoods with shopping bags of Saturday night specials, some cheap guns for like $5, and if it didn't kill you, your brother, it killed you because it backfired and killed you. And this is so it got to the point where we was like, we got to find another way to compete. So that's when hip hop came out. So then we began to channel energy in terms of competing in terms of the DJs and the music that we was creating just off of segments of our parents' music. Then came, and with that at the same time came the graffiti. A lot of us always had artistic abilities. A lot of it was from reading comics and drawing the comic characters and then, transferring that. So that was our art form, was the graffiti. The only we understood. It was like a language. We had our own language. We had our own clothing, and even the clothing spoke different things. You know what I'm saying? So that was our whole subculture that we created at that time. And then now, yes.
Sorry, but it's a culture has dominated the attention of the world. You got Bill Clinton talking about, I wish Lil Wayne luck when he gets out of jail.
We never thought. We never even thought. At that time, we never even thought it was going to be on the radio. But by the time LL Cool J and them and we already had been into it for years, undercover, unbeknownst to the mainstream media. By that time, hip hop for me, when we was beginner generation, by the time LL Cool J, it was already years old with us by that time. It was already years old by that time. And so I remember this thing from the beginning. I remember where even not all of New York City was in the hip hop yet. It was mainly the Bronx. It was mainly Bronx and at first, and then also Harlem, because at that time, that's the reason why they call it Boogie Down Bronx. Even my elder person, he said we used to always go to the Bronx because they had the best parties. So it was a powerful thing at the time. When I was going to high school art and design, this is the time of all the graffiti artists teams that they had, MTA, TMT, so on and so forth, Mass Transit. At that time, when I was bringing down tapes from the Bronx, and it was like kids from other parts of the city was like, "What's that?" It was like, "Yes, y'all, the beat, y'all, with the echo chamber." Who heard all of them? When they came out with that, it was like back in them days. Like I said, before mainstream media, it was powerful. I just wish we had more video footage of all of that.
Right, but that's why now.
What's that?
I said here we are now. With the technology available.
Yes.
I'm saying that we shouldn't let anything.
It started then.
Right.
It started then. We was fooling with the technology then. If we
what
had
I'm saying is
that we had now with China and with these other kids I was working with in China, we would have been, you see how them boombox or stuff like that, we would have been designing them to our specifications.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? But that's where we at now. That's where we at now. That's
so let's go.
Bring it up to date.
Let's open these lines up so we can get the full panel on board and we can really get to rocking and rolling.
Let me just mention real quick, because I digress a little bit, but I wanted to start from the beginning. I just wanted to mention, now bringing up to date the things now, I just wanted to mention was the Moor Atlantis website back in the days of '95. that website with the other Aziza Moore website with Brothers Jelani, these were the first two Moorish websites on the internet, basically.
They were.
Back in them days. So it was like, back in them days, it was powerful, though, because it was like a new medium. At that time, there was a school in Brooklyn that I took a job in at Brooklyn, because this was the school where that principal had got shot and killed at. And they had a brand new computer lab, but nobody wanted to run it out, go out there and take the job and run it. So I took it at that time, 96. And then I taught myself. What was that?
Was it in Red Hook?
Straight up Red Hook. Red Hook, Brooklyn.
I remember that.
Red Hook, he chased a kid out into the projects, and he had got shot and killed. So that's where I began to master the internet. 95, 96. I began on my breaks to apply myself to the technology. Remember when I did the lecture in Fort Greene, Brooklyn? I told the Moors, I said, New Moors, New Age 2000. Back then, I told them, I said, y'all better get into this science and this technology now on the ground floor. And I described to them exactly then in Fort Greene, Brooklyn, 96, exactly what's happening right now with this technology. And so this is the time, Moors. The Moorish Renaissance is now. The Moorish Renaissance began in 1992, which was right out there on 125th Street, pure feathers and turbans. That was exactly 500 years after 1492, which was the fall of the Moors in Granada, Spain. And so 500 years, that's the Phoenix cycle. That was the resurrection of the Moors at that time. And this is what the prophet said. The prophet said there will come new Moors who will have their eyes wide open, seeing and knowing, and they will take you old Moors, put you in the back, and they will carry out my law. And we was those new Moors at that time, waking up into this. And from there, 92, it was just a wrap. Now you see it all over. Everybody's Moor now. Yep, no doubt.
Beautiful
Dr.
thing,
Blair,
man.
peace.
I'm
Brother Taj, peace.
No doubt. Let's go ahead and open Brother Taj's line. Brother Peter Moon, we're coming right up to you. I'm gonna go ahead and open up the 215-730. Peace.
Peace. Islam.
Peace. Islam, brother.
Greetings to all the brothers, Dr. Blair, Brother Hakim, Red Pill, Blue Pill.
No doubt.
Got it going on.
Peace, Brother Taj. How are you?
Oh, fine, good brother. One of the things I want to mention, I'm appreciating how you open up the show with our astrological starting, because that is Moorish science, because that's how we navigate. That's how we've always navigated, and taking the mystery out of it. And that's the real deal. And like Dr. Blair presented, coming back to our issues, even as you spoke of the ego issue, the true spirituality is for us to defeat the ego, because that's what holds us, how do you say, on this carnal plane in the negative. And that's really what true religion teaches. That's why it's important to have cosmological philosophy or Gnostic information and knowledge, so that we can develop ourselves, because that's how we know ourselves. That's how we chop off the ungainly parts of the negative character that has held us back. And the other deal of it is, again, Europeans knowing that and them running the planet with Islam, which is Masonry, they know our science, and that's why they have dominated us, because they have actually traded places with us, given us idol god worship, and particularly Christianity, and they've taken Islam, veiled it under Masonry, and have been running the planet. And I'm not talking about ritualistic Islam. I'm talking about the cosmological philosophies that run the planet, and I want to make that point clear. And also, as Dr. Blair presented, a lot of the turnaround determines on our state of mind, because everything in this particular sphere is also based on the energy output that we put out, because we are a collective mind, and when we're sick, the earth is sick. And we have to understand our true breath relationship with all living things. And this is the negative part of what has happened or occurred with us for lack of knowledge of true religion, which is really the consideration of the stars, and being able to deal with and chart and recognize the energies, the push and pull energies of the planets in this particular our solar system, etc. And this is why you have the crescent and the star in Islam, not because they're worshiping anything, but we had a knowledge of this universe. And that's very important for us to be conscious of. Also, this is another reason why if people really understand even the Hebrew alphabet, everything is based on the forms of the body. Because the Hebrew alphabet itself is really cosmological. And, of course, that's based on ancient culture that supersedes even what we call today Judaism. Of course, it's not Judaism, it's Yahudism, etc. And the same culture goes back to ancient Hindustan, ancient Peru, ancient Lemuria, ancient Moabites and Canaanites in Africa and in North, Central, and South America. And that's essentially what is known as the Great Masonic Secret. So this is why when you go into the Vedic law, when you go into Magian law, when you go into ancient Torah and Kabbalah, Heliotext, Bible, Quran, they all imply in one way or another for our people to turn their hearts back to their ancient mothers and fathers, lest the earth be smitten with a curse, because it's all connected to our state of mind.
Indeed.
That's right.
Okay, so now that we have the Moorish round table assembled, the gods are on the line, I'm going to go ahead and bring in our guest for tonight, our friend, Mr. Peter Moon.
Hello.
1661. Peace.
Peace. It's nice to meet all of you. I wish we were in person together.
Right on.
Definitely. No doubt. How are you doing tonight, Mr. Moon?
I'm good. I'm honored to be here, and especially it's a surprise to know that Dr. Blair is with us. I had just read a beautiful dissertation on the internet a month ago or so about what he said about melanin, and it was so well said and so eye-opening. I'm just honored that I can be here with him. And Hakim Bey, it's interesting that my introduction to or awareness of the current Moorish culture came through the alternative Hakim Bey. You know the other one?
Yes, I know the one whose name is Peter Lamborn Wilson.
Correct.
Yeah, who used Hakim Bey as his pen name.
Yes, and that's how I discovered Noble Drew Ali through his book Sacred Drift. And when I first read it, I didn't even. I wondered if he was just making it up as fiction, because it was so outside of the paradigm of anything I'd ever learned. And keep in mind, I'm very open to alternative theories. So it is if I have an open mind, and that's a path of truth leads me to what the brother was discussing about the stars. That is so well said, because I do pay attention to astrology, and it's so wired deeply into the fabric of the universe and into the consciousness. And as you said, the star and the crescent, that it's very profound. But as I say, if I have an open mind, and it's that, I guess what you'd say, paradigm shifting for me. Think of the people out there in the culture, black or white culture. It doesn't matter what color they are. They're Chinese. They're all stuck in a paradigm that so many of them do not get. So it's far. The things we're discussing here are fundamental, but they're so far away from the reality shows and things that people find to do with their time.
All right, that's right.
Well, before we get into the conversation tonight, can you quickly introduce yourself to the family that are on the line listening and are on the internet listening to the show?
Well, certainly. My name is Peter Moon, and I've achieved notoriety beginning in 1992 when I co-authored and published a book called The Montauk Project, Experiments in Time, which was about secret government experiments that took place on the eastern end of Long Island, which as I began to investigate it, I discovered that they had misappropriated the land through hundreds of years of power struggles with the indigenous people, the Montauk Pharaohs, the Pharaoh family, and who claimed ancestry that went back to Egypt, and they declared them extinct in the 1900s by saying the judge, Abel Blackmar, said that their skin was too black to be Indians. And this raised a lot of questions in me, and I eventually found out the Lenni Lenape tribe, which was a big part of who the Montauks were, came from Delaware, which is where the word Moor first appears in the American lexicon as we would know it in modern culture, through the Delaware Moors. And I began to see that this, the whole melanation of the people and of the Indians of Long Island was, of course, one family. And as I would later meet white Indians of the Montauks, it is truly a rainbow coalition and a family of man. And this is where, so I would see that the more exotic experiments in time travel led me to a path of truth in indigenous culture, and then I even wrote a book called Synchronicity in the Seventh Seal, where I paid tribute to the Moors, but I didn't know there was active Moorish science temples, and I was contacted not by the temples themselves, and I've met brothers in the temple, but by people who were in the Moorish movement. In particular, at first it was Elias Bey from Brotherton, New Jersey. He's passed away now, and he introduced me to Hamza Sid Catlett Bey, and they have been two of my greatest teachers and introducers. And I've also met Elihu Pleasant Bey. He stayed at my house a few years ago. So I've had an introduction to Moorish culture, but unfortunately not enough because it's infinite. So that's a little bit of who I am, and I've had many adventures with a current time travel scientist, Dr. Anderson, Dr. David Anderson, and he's been taking me to Romania the last 3 years, and that's a whole nother story. But that's a little bit of who I am.
Indeed, indeed.
Well, let me also just chime in there. I appreciate, this is Blair, Dr. Blair, and I also appreciate the compliment that you gave me there, and also to let you understand, Peter Moon, not only did I review your Synchronicity in the Seventh Seal, but also the Montauk Book of the Dead, the Pyramids of Montauk, the Black Sun, which should have gotten you in trouble, but it lets me know that you're a man and stood up, but also your Spandau Mystery. And when you can get Rudolf Hess, the Deputy Chancellor Fuhrer, and you can get, again, George Patton coming to a conclusion that this planet was controlled and Vril was a chiming force, and both of them dying very mysteriously, then I simply say again, yes, we're on the same chime, and I appreciate that too. So I have reviewed you very deeply.
Thank you. It's so nice to meet you.
No doubt. Brother P-Moore, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Okay. I want to have a continuation from the conversation we had on the last show that we were on, and where we left off. One of the main reasons that I invited the brother Hakim Bey on was I told you that we were going to go further into the aspect of the Moorish presence and the quote-unquote Holy Roman Empire by way of Bavaria, because in your text you delve into a history that's there that somewhat branched off and led into what will later become the quote-unquote Illuminati and also Nazism. So for the sake of, bringing clarity to that particular topic, I kind of wanted to touch on that to see if we could delve a little bit deeper.
Yes. Yes, Moors. I've been finding out some pretty deep information about the different families. And this ties in also somewhat with what Peter Moon was researching into. When I was tracing back my own family history, and I traced it back to 1784, and I traced one particular line back to 1784, and that was the Moorish clan that came up through Delaware, and their last name was Morris, Moorris. And I also noticed that they were free. They was listed in the Census Bureau tracts as free inhabitants, and they even gave the amount of land that they owned and the value of other assets. So that really got me interested And I began doing further research, and I got the coat of arms. And the coat of arms says Moorish, and it has the lion rampant on it. And so I would look back further, and then it made me begin to understand what was going on in Europe, the whole thing about the Holy Grail, about the bloodline, and so on and so forth, that there were certain Moorish families, because that name Moorish also traces back to St. Maurice. And when you look at the history of St. Maurice in Europe, you find some very curious things, like you just mentioned about the Nazis. Here's the Nazis, and here was Hitler, preaching, Aryan supremacy, so on and so forth. But yet, at the same time, at that very same moment, at that same time, St. Maurice, or St. Moorish, was the patron saint of Germany.
That's right.
So that was very interesting. So I said, let me look further. When I looked further into it, I found out that St. Maurice, one of the things that Hitler was trying to get was the Spear of Destiny. I found out that the Spear of Destiny was the lance that St. Maurice carried into battle. I said, hold up. So then I looked deeper into it, and I found out that all the Holy Roman, quote-unquote, Holy Roman emperors had to get coronated at the altar of St. Maurice. I said, why? So let me look deeper. I looked deeper, and they say that St. Maurice came, he was in the Roman Legion. He came from a part of Meroe, Nubia, Kush, Egypt. So they're not sure exactly where they were, somewhere. And this Moorish family, this whole legend represents the Moorish family that carried the bloodline of David in Europe, and that bloodline had to be mixed into the royal families of Europe in order for them to call themselves the Holy Roman Empire and claim the divine right of kings. It was because it was through this particular bloodline, this is what the whole thing dealing with the Holy Grail was. This is why when you look at it, it says the Black Presence and Western Art, or whatever, that 3-volume set, so on and so forth. You see all these different paintings of all these different brothers and sisters in Europe. And a lot of times behind the scenes, like for instance, the one I mentioned in the 5th Journal, the Moorish Paradigm book that I wrote, Angelo Solomon, who was the Grand Master of the Masonic Lodge that Haydn, Bach, all of them, Beethoven was all members of. And he's the one who established the literary tradition amongst the Masons. And so I'm seeing all these different Moors in different places all throughout Europe. And I found some other interesting things. And I'm announcing it right for the first time, big time on this show. I found out that there was no such thing as the ancient Roman Empire or ancient Greek Empire as we've been taught. It never existed. I found out that all this was concocted during the Renaissance period. All those statues, all those things attribute to 500 BC, it never happened. That was during the time of the Renaissance, 1400, 1500, 1600, that those things was being made. They were buried in their friend's backyard, dig it up 10 years later and say, look what we found. We break the arm off or whatever. You do the science, marble doesn't even last that long. If you have marble from 500 BC, you look at some of the stuff they got in these museums, it doesn't match. Something's wrong. I found out a lot of deep... Yes. So what I found out was that there was an Israelite empire on this planet Earth, and when that broke down, when they talk about Solomon and so on and so forth, that was the establishment of the empire. When all those different kings that it was giving them their daughters to marry, so on, that's when that kingdom was set up. This is why in every nation you will find quote unquote Jews, and you will find out that they are the ones in the administrative positions. Because, and in all those countries, they look just like the people there, and they're in the administrative positions because they was the ones who was administering the previous empire that fell. It lasted maybe a century, and it fell apart. And when it fell apart, that's when all these different city-states and so on and so came about, and this is when they began to concoct fictional histories because they felt that if they was able to establish antiquity, it would give them more leverage in the world that was coming about at that time. So all the stuff you read about Aristotle, a lot of these were either Moors at that time or students of the Moors. all these so-called Greek philosophers. All that stuff was during that time. So this is why there was a dark ages, of so-called dark ages, where they would say there was no records or whatever. If there was records, what they did was transplanted to a whole different age. And so this was ancient times, ancient Greek, the ancient Roman. When they talking about the wars of Rome and Carthage, they're talking about these are the wars between the Christians and the Moors in Spain and all that stuff at that time. So what they did was transplant a whole history and threw everybody off. But now through this Moorish truth, we're getting to the truth of this. And I found this out just from tracing back my family, just tracing back the Moorish bloodline. That's what y'all have to do. Y'all have to trace it. It's traceable.
Yes.
It's traceable. I had to sit down with all the elders in my family, all of them, before they passed. And it was as if they waited for me, and I got the information for them. And I went and I got Census Bureau tracts. Went to the different bureaus of our statistics in the different counties and stuff, and got the records that they had, especially like the death records, because it would tell you their parents and where their parents was born. I traced the whole thing back to 1784, and then from there further back by getting the coat of arms with the lion rampant on it. That was the key, and then the blazon in the back matched St. Maurice. Their family name was Morris, and it matched St. Maurice, and that's when I traced back to St. Maurice, and the whole basis of the power structure was based on him. That's what that legend was showing you. All the kings had to get coronated as his author. He was the patron saint of Germany, all them nations. That was the foundation of the whole thing. We don't realize who we are. That's why I suggest everybody here speak to the elders, get as much information as you can, and then we will tell you how to take it back further. Sign up on Ancestry.com. Get the Census Bureau tracks. It's hard at first, but you got to study the handwriting. I couldn't make heads or tails of the handwriting half the time until I learned how to read it. Then all this information, I was tracing it back like crazy. What happened was that them Moorish families who was south of the Mason-Dixon line, they was moving up north. And that's what happened with my family. They moved north of the Mason-Dixon line to stay free, and they stopped off in what we call Delaware now. And then from there, my family went to Salem, New Jersey, and brought farmland because they wanted to stay. In other words, they was living back then like the 85 years old. I looked at my family in the Census Bureau tract. His name was Shadrach Morris. They had Israelite names. There was Moors, but they had Israelite names. Shadrach Morris.
I mean, it's worth noting at this particular time that the first temple was the Moorish Zionist temple.
Exactly. This is the whole connection. And then you know what that was also connected with? I found out the AME Zion Church, the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church. And when you look at that, some of the Moorish elders said that they had the truth up until the 1900s. Now, when you look into it, my family was part of that. They was teaching through what they call pageants. Like my great-great-grandmother, they used to put on pageants where they used to act out different parts of the Bible, pantomime with no words. And this is how sometimes they had to teach. They would just like pantomime, you know what I'm saying? And she was renowned for that. And when she passed, they came from all over, all them AME Zion Church. They came to her funeral, and they, like I said, they had farmland, everything. I'm telling you, these Moors, these were true free Moors. They're listed in the Census Bureau as free inhabitants. And then you go back to the Articles of Confederation, and it talks about free inhabitants. These were our ancestors who tried to get north of the Mason-Dixon. So that's why you see them so big time in Delaware, because Delaware was a stop-off point, and they had to go further north because Delaware was still was still considered a slave state at that time. So a lot of them stopped off at Delaware, trying to go further north. Like now my family on that side, like he mentioned, the Lenape or Delaware Moors, my family was the Unalachico, Turkey clan. You go all up in the Poconos where we be going all our people be going all out in the Poconos. Don't even realize that was our cousins, the Mincy or the Muncie, the Wolf clan, and that was our hunting grounds. That's why I used to wonder why I always loved the Poconos so much. Then you go out to Long Island, you got our Shinnecock brothers and sisters.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it's deep, Moors. I'm telling you, we don't realize who we are. We home. This is our home. My roots trace right back here. You know what I'm saying? We own land, everything. This is for real. I ain't just reading books. I'm finding this in my own family. My own mother said, Hakim, this is crazy. You told all this stuff about the Moors, and here it's right here in the family. This is real, Moors. This is real.
I have a question for you. The AME Zion Church now stands, they have Methodist in there. What does it originally stand for? What does it originally mean?
Originally, in other words, what happened was that because of the conflicts that they were having in the European churches, one of them broke off and said, all right, let's form something for ourselves so that we could worship without going through the whole, race situation. And so this is when they formed it. At that time, too, there was a lot of things going on because when we owned land, it was held jointly with the tribe or the nation. And they was coming up with things like the Doors Commission, or what we used to call the Blood Rolls back in, I'm talking about the 1800s, late 1800s after the Civil War. And this was saying that this like my family was Cherokee, according to my grandfather, the true Cherokee. They used to wear the turbans, everything. But what they said when they came out the Doors Commission, all these shall be considered Cherokee, and they only said the ones with the phenotypes that look like the Mongol mixed with the European fur trader type. The dark-skinned, woolly-haired brothers and sisters, they was categorized out from that. So that was the first step. And then the second step, what they did is they said those who were left classified Cherokee, they said you would no longer hold these lands jointly. You will hold them, each family will be allotted a plot of land for that family, and then you will be considered citizens. And what that did was break down the trust. And they knew the minute that any of those families ran into economic problems or was just terrorized out, that they would just get the land. They would get the land. Whereas before, when we held it jointly, no individual one of us could sell the land to European fur traders or anything like that. You couldn't do that. So they had to break it down to the Doors Committee, and then they had to get our people out from that classification. All of us and our families that we knew we were Cherokee, someone who didn't remember, they would say Blackfoot. I found out that Blackfoot was just like a generic term that a lot of them used when they wasn't sure exactly what tribe, because they was breaking us down.
Yes.
The Trail of Tears, all that stuff, they broke us down. But it's still there, but we got to get it. You have to talk to the elders and get the names and dates. And then from there, I'm telling you now, right there on Ancestry.com, you could trace it through the Census Bureau tracks.
I have something very
interesting.
Interesting to point out here is that there was the Transylvania colony in Kentucky that Daniel Boone helped blaze the trail for. And that was a big settlement which wasn't accepted. It was rejected as the 14th colony, but the reason was King George III, who suffered from, horrible porphyria. He had Rh negative blood. He had created an edict that said that colonists could not make deals with the Indians. So that was voided. Now, it's interesting, the establishment of the United States of America, which was done largely by Freemasons, was, violated whatever claim the English crown had on this land, and the English crown probably still considers that they have a claim on this land. And it's an interesting legal predicament that they couldn't deal with the tribal people because it would create complex issues. And you've brought this up. This is if we take it all back, it's all going to go. The English crown probably had some knowledge of the mandate, and this is, I don't know if anybody.
Oh yeah.
The mandate, and the mandate is so ephemeral. I'd like if anybody can comment on it.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
What do you know about King George III's wife?
Yes, Queen Charlotte. Yes, she was Moorish.
All right.
Yes.
All right. I got her right there in my family genealogy book. She was a straight up Moor. Remember I said that they had to mix in that Moorish blood every 4 generations or so. They claim that the divine right of kings. It's like that movie Doom, when they talk about the Bene Gesserit sisterhood that manipulated bloodlines for generations. this is what was going on. They had to do that. This was the Holy Grail. This was the Holy Blood. They had to be meted out piecemeal through certain marriages.
Well, there is probably a hidden sisterhood at work that is not as fully come to light here in relation to the English crown. And the English crown, the whole English crown has always been in question. But
let me ask you about their coat of arms. What do you see up in one of the quarters of the coat of arms for England?
I couldn't tell you.
You see the lion rampant, right?
Okay.
That's the tribe of Judah. Wherever any of those families that had that had the coat of arms with the lion rampant in it, that means descendant of the bloodline of David, connected with the tribe of Judah.
Right.
Saint Maurice who came from where? Meroe, Ethiopia, Cush. In other words,
I want to interject real quick because Peter Moon made an interesting connection last show he was on when he made mention of the Merovingian.
What is in the Matrix? That's an old program. The Merovingians, that's the Moorish bloodline. That's the same Saint Maurice, Meroe, Maurice.
Can you translate it the way that you did on that particular show?
Well, I said it's the vine of the Moors.
And yes, the vine of the Moors.
That's right. And they said that the bloodline came through an aquatic beast, right? An aquatic sea.
A Kinatar, they called it.
All right. And that deals with the Moors, the maritime Moors.
Well, let me explain. The Kinatar is a very this was from Holy Blood, Holy Grail, but I'm quoting, they mentioned the Kinatar, but what they did not understand in the Holy Blood, Holy Grail is the Kino is 5, and that's quintessence. That's the fifth element, which is this Masonic secret of Shin. Shin, the Yod-He, Shin, Bao-He, which is the secret of Freemasonry is Shin, which means tooth in Hebrew, which goes back to the crescent tooth of the boar. Their totem was the boar, and that Shin was a female name for the moon from Shinar, the ancient capital of Babylon. But this is the Kinatar refers to that magical name of Yod-He, Shin, Bao-He, which is also transliterated into Jesus or Yeshua, and this is a great mystery. It's the magical bloodline. Back to the crescent again. But the Moorish, what it says in that book that is perhaps most disturbing or most revealing is that they say that the bloodline was co-opted, that the original bloodline was co-opted by, said the major domo, which is the domestic servants, and they took over. In other words, it's like sort of like
Charlemagne.
Yes, but it's like Planet of the Apes, which is you read the original book, apes took over from man. So here you have the equivalent of the apes, whether it be the white people or whatever the people are, the domestic servants. The apes were servants in that original science fiction book, and they got smart and took over, and that's kind of what's happened here. And even to the Montauk bloodline, research has shown that some 30 presidents have had Montauk Indian blood. So it's like what we have is we have our dumb cousins ruling the establishment, and this is the problem.
Right, because they got us out. They squeeze us out through all, like I said, like the Doors Rolls, the blood rolls, the Doors Commission. All these things was squeezing us out. The original ones who were here, who was the main ones, who was behind so much here, they squeezed us out through all kinds of ways. My great-great-grandfather worked for DuPont. He was an engineer. They hired him as a janitor. He would go upstairs, invent all kinds of stuff, do all kinds of stuff. They would give him a bonus and then send him back downstairs as the janitor.
Yeah, that's like that. Yeah.
It's how they squeeze us out.
But it's so amazing how cunning and good they are at it.
Yeah, but it's unfortunate. It was unfortunate to America as a whole. Look at people like George Washington Carver, one of the greatest scientists, plant geniuses ever lived. You know what I'm saying? These were people who should have been heads of whole departments in this nation. You know what I'm saying? But because of being squeezed out, unfortunately because of race or whatever the case may be, that messed up really America, messed up everybody because
Brother
of that.
Todd.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yes. Do you want to add on anything to the question about the crown?
Well, yes, I want actually quite a few things because so many things was touched on.
Yes.
But one of the important things that we must do, and also Hakim, I want to also iterate. My grandmother was Eva Morris. She come from the Moorish.
No doubt, boy. You know we know more.
And she's like from Virginia territory, and you know they ran us out there. Now my family owned like where the Garden State Racetrack here is in Jersey, up on Route 70, from the Pennsauken area to the Delbert area, through Merchantville, through Cherry Hill. All that land was our land. And
guess where I'm at? Guess where I'm at right now, Brother Todd. That's where I'm at. I'm right near Moorestown.
Yeah, well, that's our land.
Route 70, Route 38, Route 38, Route 70.
Yes, they systematically took it over the years, and like in 89, when I was on Mickle Street in Camden, I got this big check in the mail, and they had to call my family from around the area because they were dividing up the last of the estate. I wouldn't cash the check because I didn't agree to it. Of course, they were stealing it, all that stuff when I was younger. And then I discovered a lot of my family, including quite a few people who I nationalized over the years that I didn't know was my family till I met them at the hotel when they was dividing up our estate.
Wow.
But anyway, getting past that.
This is real. This is real-time history going on right now. This is real. This stuff is really going on. And all of our families got these stories.
Absolutely.
Yes, and the other deal of it is, we for the listeners, it's very important for us to understand Hitler and why he used the swastika. The swastika is actually Moorish.
That's
and
right.
It's the oldest religious symbol on the planet. And the forward and the backwards is cycles of life and cycles of death.
There you go.
Of course, that's your 490 degrees, which is your 360 degrees, which is your Trismegistus, or what your quadral course, or what they call quadragesimus, or i.e. the zodiac squared, etc. And one of the keys for people to understand Aryan, this is another thing that people must understand about Aryan. Aryan is not a race. Aryan is the first of the Germanic tribes that used to study us in the north, in the Asia Major, where that yoga culture that you have now that people call yoga, from actually Tibet, China area, which is Mongolia, etc., and Manchuria area, which is the ancient philosophies of ancient Peru that was actually preserved from ancient Lemuria and ancient Moabites, etc., because the land was also at one point all together, which they would call, Pan, etc. The deal of it is that the Aryans are the first of the German tribes that were studying us in ancient Peru, which you call now Hindustan, which is pronounced by sociologists today as India, which it is not. And of course, when they were trying to conquer the Moors, and Pedro the Moor took them to the Atlantis Islands, this is why they called us Indians, and that's where the term Indian came from, because they was trying to take over the spice trade in Manchuria. So that's very important to understand. And so the first of the Germanic tribes to study us were called Aryans, because that deals with he who sits in the east, or the first sign of the ram, i.e. Aries, the ram, i.e. the first gate of the zodiac facing east. And that's where the term Aryan comes from Aries. And so really the Aryans are the first of those who study Moorish culture or Moorish science, which is the zodiac cosmology science of the planet. And so that must be understood when people calling Europeans Aryans as a race. It's a misconception, total misconception.
Excuse me, did you say, what was the name of the land you said that they were, it sounded like you said thorough. Did you,
Perot. It's like P-E-R-O-T, but it's Perot.
Perot, okay, like Ross Perot, sort of like Ross Perot.
It's spelled exactly the same.
Okay.
That's what the ancient name of the area that people now call Hindustan was before the Moors renamed it a few thousand years ago. And today it is called India, which it is not. It's Hindustan. And so
now, there's something interesting.
Yeah, the H is silent. And so when Pedro navigated the Nino to the Atlantis Island, because they never took them to the mainland, they saw the same culture. And on many of the islands, they saw these ancient statues that we had on all the islands with feathers on them that were hewn out of rock that was not indigenous to the areas which they were erected, and they were ancient even then, and so they called these people Indians because they saw turbans and feathers and jewels and crescents and stars, and much of the what they call later sociologists call Semitic language. They saw a lot of the dialects were similar and a lot of the language was similar, and so they called us Indians of the West. That's where West Indian came from, and that's how the term Indian has been applied in the Western Hemisphere. But they always taught their children that we call them Indians, but we know they are not. And so our people have learned from reconstructed history to call themselves Indians, and then a lot of the Moorish tribes agreed to be that in order to get certain benefits, although the design was actually set forth to divide us against each other. And my family is Cherokee and Blackfoot, but it's Anayanwea. So a lot of this convolution is what has put us, in disorder. And one of the other things must be remembered when Adolf Hitler, when they were nationalized Germany, when you had many Germans and Polacks who had no loyalty to Germany, and remember after the Treaty of Versailles that Germany could not have a standing army, and there were people that was controlling the economy in Germany, and they were sucking it dry, and so Hitler nationalized Germany, and then you had some Germans who were claiming to be Jews, and so Hitler took the position that if they claimed to be Jews as a nationality, which he said it was not because there is no J in Hebrew, he knows that those who they defeated there were Ibri, or what you call Hebrew, because there is no J in Hebrew or Aramaic or in Semitic language. But that was the reconstruction of the councils of Nicaea under Constantine, the Roman ruler, in order to try to kill the old culture. And so he said, those that claim to be Jews are not Jews. They're there controlling the wealth. And when many of them left, if you notice that most of the ships went to the Falkland Islands and Argentina. And then Hitler made this statement, as those will check his record, Mein Kampf, etc. He said, we're going back to our home to Argentina. See, so people need to know that the Germanic tribes didn't begin in Germany. They came from the hybrid experience from Patagonia, what you call Argentina. That's why when the people who were claiming to be Jews left and they were going to tell the real part of the real history, etc., this is one of the reasons why they attacked Palestine and gave them that land, because of blackmail. And then when they went to Argentina, they went to Cuba, Argentina, Britain, etc., and none of the nations would let them off the ship because they were claiming Jew as a nationality when no such thing existed, that they were actually Germans and Polacks, etc. And so that created a convolution, and many of them started committing suicide, jumping off the ships, etc. And so the United States, Britain, and etc. got together and started that war and murdered up a bunch of Palestinians who were occupying ancient Palestine and created Israel. After that, this is the reason why they used the Moorish insignia, which is actually, as Hakim said, Hex Alpha, which is really the insignia of the Moorish nation, which people call the Jewish star, which it is not. It is Hex Alpha. And so a lot of this convolution takes place, and this is why, again, where you have in England, etc., and just like Brother Peter was talking about, Peter Moon was talking about, the issue with the nobility. This is why they refer to hide or to codify, they call it the black nobility in England. etc. And so when we're looking at the convolution of the politics that takes place in North America now, even with Skull and Bones, that's Bush family and the whole rest of them, is they must take into consideration, and this is Brother Peter Moon brought this up, this is where the real hidden politics is from the Treaty of Verona of 1213. And that Treaty of Verona of 1213 is where King John of England made a pact with the popes of Rome and promised anything that they conquered in the Moorish Empire would be bequeathed to the popes of Rome. This is why the Internal Revenue Service belongs to the Jesuits. And this is why the fiction has been created to make people think that the Internal Revenue Service is a branch of the United States government when it's actually a private foreign corporation owned by the Jesuits of Rome.
Break it down.
Yeah. And the Inquisition and the Internal Revenue Service is actually the Inquisition Revenue Services under the Inquisitor General. This is the reason why they have a desk in the United States Treasury, and the United States Treasury is essentially defunct. And that's the real deal. And so what our people have been miscalculating or by miseducation calling racism is actually Inquisition operations in the Western Hemisphere. And that's the big secret. And, of course, Brother Hakim brings that out in a lot of his books and a lot of his lessons. And these are where these things, and this is the reality of the politics and the paradigm. So when Brother Pete is talking about some of the vagaries of what you may seem vagaries or the seem, how do you say, some of those areas that seem not so clear with the relationship with England, and he's correct. England does have a claim here, and they've never relinquished their claim. And this is the reason why, how do you say, in 1933, 32, 33, say when the Master Mason, Delano Roosevelt, was mayor of the Empire State of Amsterdam Territory, which you call New York, that he asked for the war powers even before he was inaugurated, and this is the real secret of the so-called bank holiday or the so-called depression. And because they were transferring gold to England from here. And this is the reason why after 1928, 28, when Noble Ali was making appeals to the Moors who were loyal, you understand, to come to his aid and to give him more support at that time, because he was faced with opposition from inside the movement, from COINTEL membership that had taken positions of ministership within the Moorish Science Temple to neutralize it. This is why even today you see the practice of them not having the Moorish newspaper, the Moorish Guide newspaper, even though Noble Drew Ali said that's the most important weapon in the hand of our group today in order to shovel us out of the lies that were heaped on us by the day. And COINTELPRO members who were working for J. Edgar Hoover and Calvin Coolidge, the first thing they did when Noble Drew Ali passed his form was shut down that newspaper. That's why the Moors don't have newspapers today.
That's why we set up.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't have such an instrument today, do we?
That's why
no, because you know what happened.
That's why they won't.
Timing of it.
Yes, that's also why they won't let people see the FBI papers, because it becomes quite obvious by document of the great sellout that nobody wants to talk about. This is another reason why those who've been working for COINTELPRO will criticize any active Moors out here that are teaching people civilization and civics, because that's the basis of the Moorish Divine and National Movement that's expressed in the divine warning to the nations to enforce the Constitution of the United States, which come from our ancient law. And the Europeans who were brought into government were taught ancient law from the Hana-Hanasi that people call Iroquois. That's what Masonry is, and that's why they use the term lodges. The lodges come from the longhouses in upper state New York, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I remember. Now, Hakim, you were the one that has a certain mastery of the web, right?
Yeah.
I mean, might I suggest that you put up, do that paper on the web? In other words, call it the same name, talk about the history, and start slowly, just because a lot of the websites have a lot of folderol on them, and they're true information, but they're not easy to negotiate and navigate. There's so much information. The simplicity of what you're saying.
That was actually the reason for the 13 books, Journal of the Moorish Paradigm, especially the 13th one, of dealing with that history, because what Prophet Noble Drew Ali did was very important. And look at the timing of it. He established, first he went to the Pan American Conference, and then he comes back here, and then he establishes the trust on exactly July 20th, 1928. He passes a year to the day later, July 20th, 1929, and then exactly 2 months or so later, the stock market crashes. Is there a connection? Is there a connection? Yes, there is, because he established what was taken from the Moors, he reclaimed. In other words, like Brother taught, he said that it was held in abeyance. What belonged to the Moors was held in abeyance for lack of a rightful heir. And then what happened was the Prophet stepped forward and claimed it, and then immediately set it up in a trust.
Right. Now,
and
what I want to take note of,
America. That trust was the Moor Scientific of America, and the trustees were the sheiks and the heads of the temples, and the beneficiaries were the members. This is why I said you must proclaim your Moorish nationality, because when you proclaimed it, it put you in the category of a beneficiary of that trust. And so after he did that, they had to reshuffle, because remember at that time, just like now, the stock market was maybe 10% real money and 90% just entries, entries like journal entries.
Right.
And so once the collateral, the foundation of it was pulled out by the Prophet and put into a trust, they had to reshuffle the deck. And that's why the New Deal was a whole new shuffling of the whole political, economic situation of the whole country from 1932 to 1933 to 1938. Everything was reshuffled with the New Deal.
That particular vacancy that you're talking about is the same one that Peter Moon speaks of with the Montauk. The fact that there's no one there to step up and play that particular role of making the claim back to the particular land, because the way that they lost their quote-unquote status was by census. They shot the census around in the 1900s and early 1900s, and they checked themselves off as black. And that's how the government got that particular land that they used for Montauk. Correct?
Well, I don't know that they checked themselves off as black at all. It's that they had a bunch of them appear at the trial, and now some of them had dark skin, some of them weren't so dark, and it's very evident to me that they were of the Montauk Indian royal blood. I'm looking at them, but then if you were particularly racist or slanted, it's like they looked at it by the way he was indoctrinated to look at it. It was very racist, and more than racist, it was just plain wrong and disregarding the actual facts.
Now, this is the real deal concerning that. What they was really doing was enforcing the Berlin Conference. You got to remember the Berlin Conference of 1884, 1885, and this is where the Christian nations came together to divide up the last of the Moorish Empire that was not, totally dissolved. This is why you see the confiscation of land in North America even comes up even to this date, where they've still been stealing our land. This
the
is
Monroe
Doctrine.
That's right, the Monroe Doctrine, all that stuff that was going on in the late 1800s, because it was a crazy situation. There's all these people, it was taken from the slave masters' hands and then placed into the hands of the Freedmen's Bureau. Until they had to figure out what we were going to do with these people, and then they said we got to come up with some semblance of citizenship, and this is when they came up with the 14th Amendment, where if they would have claimed their true nationality, there would have been no need for 14th Amendment. In other words, like my family that owned land here, according to the Census Bureau tracts, there's no need for them to come under the 14th Amendment because they was listed even before the Constitution under the Confederacy as free inhabitants with full rights of citizens. So they were so I'm just using myself for example. I don't even have to get hypothetical on it. For my family, all they had to do was claim their nationality. There's no need for no 14th Amendment. That was for those who didn't know, have no idea, who was just released from the slave master hand and had no idea, and they said, all right, this is the Freeman's Bureau is like a way station until we figure out what we're going to do. Come up with the 14th Amendment, brought us under. That's how, because there was no, the states never voted and said we're going to make them citizens. So this was the 14th Amendment according to the federal government. So what happened was that was it was like a step-by-step process, breaking us down, taking our lands here all over the place. The Empress case was around that time. All these lands is being taken from us all over the world, all indigenous peoples, like you said, and being divvied up. And remember that movie called The National Treasure? Right? Mm-hmm. That National Treasure, that's our inheritance.
Exactly.
And this is what they speculate every day with on Wall Street. You see what I'm saying? But they really just fiduciary agents. They don't own it. We the true owners of the wealth. You see what I'm saying? But they're just fiduciary agents. And it's like you put a bank, you put a deposit into a bank, and you forget the deposit's there. The bank is fiduciary. They're gonna still invest and do whatever they want to do with it until you wake up and make a withdrawal.
Indeed.
And this is why the United States is operating what is known as a sister cube trust. And so our people need to understand that, and this is, again, why Noble Drew said the 14th and 15th Amendment is not necessary for the salvation of our the citizens. And
just know who you are.
The radical Republicans did the 14th Amendment in order to escheat the land, because this is back to the legal term that is applied to them breaking the line of descendancy. It's called cheating, ESCHEAT. It's a legal term. And this is one of the reasons why they forced their family names on the Moors in order to escheat, to break the line of descendancy. This is also why marriage certificates are filed in the Department of Orphans, to break the line of descendancy, to achieve exactly what you just stated from a chicanery legal perspective. That's why it's important for people to know why the corporate person, i.e., 14th Amendment, was created in the first place. And also, this is the reason why so-called black people, whatever they call themselves this week or this year, cannot vote unless they're allowed to vote by the Senate and the Congress and signed by the CEO, which is the president. So
and it has to be renewed every so amount of years. That's right.
Those things must be understood.
That's right.
Brother Delbert Blair.
Yes. Hello there. It's been very interesting because I'm already applying for sovereignty, and I was either going to go to the Waukesha or the anyway, let me get past that. What I really thought you were going to do was to get back to the ancient history which set this whole thing up in the first place. So that's the only thing that I can see to do there. First of all, when the Moors came out of Morocco and Mauritania in 711 and again in 1175, they came into the area that was known as Khazaria. It had no name. Their name Europe comes from the Princess Europa, the black princess who was the one that constructed the area there. And when the Moors came over there, they dealt with heathens and people who were very backwards. They came from Khazaria. So all of the names, when you look at the coats of arms, when they showed that the Moors were there, they were so proud and glad to have some kind of science, some kind of the science of symbols and everything else along this line, that they would draw the black Moor that was there. So if you were German, your name was Schwartz or Schwarzmann or Blackman or Furstard, these all meant black. It meant they were Moors that had gotten the blood in there, which made them very proud because they were, say, a very Khazaric type people. If you were Italian, your name was Negrini, Pellegrini, Moroni, Marini. It means, again, that you had the bloodline of the Moors, and they were very happy to announce that. If you were English, your name was Morrison, which means son of a Moor, Morian, child or children of a Moor, Morris, Morrison. All of these meant the same thing, that you had black blood. And there was no Europe because, as they say, it was called Khazaria. Europe came about from the Princess Europa, a black princess. If you get even further than that and you're going backwards, you'd have to get back to Lemuria. And this is what nobody wants to touch there, because it shows you how this planet was divided up when these aliens came here. And this is where most of this has really been hidden. In Lemuria, you have your original Moors, the M-U-U-Rs. They have in Hawaii, Queen Halekulani and Halekulini. They have, again, showing you that these people not only were world travelers, they traveled to other planets. And this is what had to be hidden, because when you see on Mars the black Moor that's up there, which is a female Moor with dreads, 5 miles long, 15 miles wide, it meant the people even going to other planets. These other people that were drop-offs here. So you're not taking it further enough, and this is where it gets kind of... What is beautiful is that if you can get those three brothers there together, you can get everybody here that has Moorish blood to get free of this whole taxation system and so on like that. That's why they're only letting a few out. But when you get into the domination of the planet, now you're having a planet that is going back to what it was, and that's where everybody is losing out. There's a big change going on the planet, and this is what you're not touching. You're not going back further enough. This is great to get some money, stop paying taxes, getting off these foreclosures and all that, but the planet is now going back to the original people who are about to come back again, who came from Mars. That's where your name Massa comes from. Massa is one of the old names for Mars. They had a settlement there at the Great Pyramids, and they were able to actually travel through transmutation. The Great Pyramid is nothing but, again, a transmutation device for the Merkaba. And if you look at the mispronunciation by the Greeks of the city called Cairo, it was called Kahir because they couldn't say K's. And Kahir means Mars. Egypt, of course, was another name for Nile, and Nile all meant river. It just meant they even reversed the flow of the river when the battles were fought here. So this is what they don't want you to understand. Not only are the Negroid-looking people coming back, and I'm using a terrible term, I realize that, or black people coming back, they also have their statues all over the place. They're in Angkor, they're in Thoravat, they're in Cambodia, they're in Laos, they're in Kyrgyzstan, they're in China. Everywhere you see these black-looking, Negroid-looking people who actually came from Mars by way of Syria. You have now 12 different races of aliens on this planet right now talking with your government. If you notice, the Vatican has even set up an emissary. They now have a woman, an Asian woman, who's going to be the emissary to talk with some of these extraterrestrials that are about coming back. We're all blind. You got Procyon here, you got Umites here, you got Regalians here, you got Syrians here, you got Lyrans here, you got Tall Cetaceans here, Alpha Cetaceans, Pleiadians, Andromedans, and you're talking about something that is very current. The change now is going to happen on a planet to put it back into their hands and take it away from the Dracons who had to get through the Illuminati in order to keep this subterfuge going on. Like I say, we could go on, but it's according to how far back you want to go. I don't think we've gone back far enough, but what you're doing now will free the people from taxes, hopefully keep them out of jail. If anybody in the Senate, anybody in the Congress, and anybody in the presidency isn't already under alien control anyway.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. And exactly what Dr. Blair just brought up is really what you would call the Masonic secret that's maintained in the hierarchy, in Skull and Bones, in the Oddfellows, in the Grange, et cetera, et cetera. And, of course, that's the added chamber, Moorish science, that's presented to free the world. And more, M-U-U-R, come from the last high priest in the Yucatan area, from the largest pyramid in the world, which is in Mexico City, Moor-Luacanil.
Let me bring up another subject which might shed some even deeper light. And, some of my more recent work has been talking about Dr. David Anderson, who's talked a lot about the time control technology and how the governments are fighting each other to have the best time control technology, which is sort of his expertise. He said that India is one of the leading countries as far as advancement in time control technology. But the reason I bring this up in this discussion is not only because it's, I guess it's paramount to space travel or similar things of what Dr. Blair was saying, but it's I've read very seldomly, and it's very guarded information, obscure references to the Moorish Science Temple, and I'm not talking about just the Peter Lamborn Wilson stuff, but to Moorish time projects, very obscure. And I wonder if any of you can add about the science of traveling in time from a Moorish perspective in history.
The Moorish perspective. First of all, when you mention David Anderson, you talk about his journeys into time. Again, he's produced a documentary, a DVD about the Time Travel Research Center. And I think, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, you did some research on that, Mr. Moon. If I'm not mistaken, the Travel Research Center. Am I wrong?
Well, yeah, he's evolved that into what's called the Anderson Institute. He reincorporated as Anderson Multinational. His website is andersoninstitute.com, and he's actually announced on the Art Bell Coast to Coast show last January, which you can hear on YouTube, that he's actually been putting humans in the time control chamber. And he doesn't say a whole lot about it. He did show us an example of the time chamber, not on a human, a video of it in Montauk last April. But he, he's got advances the current state of time. In fact, there was something going around YouTube, which Hamza Sid Catlett Bey had sent to me, as it had many other people, which showed a woman in a Charlie Chaplin something that fell on the editing room floor. She was an older lady talking on what looked like a cell phone, but I thought it was a walkie-talkie. But it was like, so people were saying, was this a time traveler back in the days of Charlie Chaplin? And what Dr. Anderson's comment about it was, he said he was surprised that we don't see more of these things coming up, because he sees time and traveling through different time zones as sort of very fluid. But I'm interested if any of you have turned up anything from the history of Moorish science, other than the Peter Lamborn Wilson stuff, which is more apocryphal, that mentions any of this stuff. Because I've seen it before, but it's very obscure.
Well, in the Grand Canyon, they have their settlements there with pyramids. They have their giant bones. They have their person who's no longer than 3 inches tall, which shows, again, that they had museums there. When the great apocalypse, one of the original of the 7 floods, wiped out that area, they had people that lived here from this planet is a zoo. That's the best thing I can say. You had the laggards from everywhere dropped off here. You had the governors, and the only one could keep them in check were the people from Mars and from Arcturus and from Sirius, because other than that, everybody jumped off everything here that was already hybrid. It was no good anyplace else. Nobody wanted to do anything there. There was a battle that was fought on a place called Maldek and an accompanying moon called Malona. It created the asteroid belt when they destroyed each other, and that same moon came here, and it's the same one that's going around us now, by which they had a great battle that was fought by the people from Mars, who we now call Olmecs, which is another name, or Nakawakans, and they're the ones that saved this whole planet from being completely taken over. Off of that, you get these legends and how these people hybrided people. They had people like the blonde people again. In many cases, they came from a place that was called Regalia. They came from a place that was called Pleiadians. These people did not come here. The whole planet at one time would look Negroid, if you want to call it like that, because it was the only ones that could survive after the great catastrophe was opened up the sun and was burning people alive. That was why the penalty was put, when the Nile was turned backwards, the penalty was put on the people who misused the application of what they call vril, which was before that called Masmak, and which is the same thing now they're trying to regenerate. Hitler understood all of this. Hitler's name was not even Hitler. His name was Adolf Scheckelgruber. He named his stuff after his astrologer died, and he understood that as Schwarzborgen, but up in the area now that is full of snow and ice, that some of his people had been there because that was where they settled when they came to the planet. We have a planetary war going on here now. We have people from everywhere claiming what their little hybrids can now do and what their hybrids can't do. And the whole point is we've got to understand that we're a collection of everything. And that the whole idea is now that this planet has gone through so much that the people here will either be taken inside the Earth, outside the Earth, or destroyed, because the thing has gone too far where now people don't even understand who their original were, who their original gods were. That's why they got so many different looking gods. I don't even know where to begin with this. But understand, it's a time of great change. That 2012 December 21st date is real. It's not because it's real because of the time date, but that's just about the time when this whole planet now will begin to see ships all over the place. Your president knows it. That's one of the reasons why the congressmen know it. That's one of the reasons why you're getting a lot of changes. They've already been told to stop these taxes. They've been told to get the UN as a real collective and not a parchment society. They're not doing any of it, and they know it's just a matter of time. I don't even know where to begin with, where to even end this.
Peter Moon, I understand that you just attended there was a conference in Burlington, Wisconsin. Would you care to speak on that? Was any of these topics discussed at that particular conference?
Well, it was a very interesting conference at the Sci-Fi Cafe in Burlington, Wisconsin, which is sort of a Masonic city that nobody will own up to except the owner of the Sci-Fi Cafe who's exposed it. But
absolutely,
I had a few of my Moorish friends from Chicago come up to see me, Cato and Chris, and I think when I was talking, I got Chris get up and give a little talk about. I couldn't even repeat what he said. It was so numerological. I wish I would have had it videotaped because it was so astute. I mean, he's a humble bus driver. That's all he wants to be, but he has all of this knowledge of the numerology of everything, and it was very interesting. But I think the most interesting thing for me, other than that, was I met a man named Dennis Crenshaw, and of course his partner Rick Osmond. They have a TV show, and they got to meet my Moorish friends. But Dennis Crenshaw wrote a very interesting book. It's about the airships. You've heard of these mysterious airships from Texas in the late 1800s?
Yes.
Well, these seem to come back to trace back to Sonora, California, the Sonora Aero Club, and they were being produced. There's an artist, Del Shaw, who produced these incredible manuscripts of flying balloons or flying zeppelins or whatever they were. And in technical detail, he was German. So he wrote with the precision of a German, and he stayed up in his attic writing these things. And but they reveal a secret code. Now, I'm on the trail of the secret code, but what fascinated me more about any of this stuff was that it came from Sonora, California. And, of course, having come from California and having a friend from California whose ancestor started the gold rush, is a marshal, and he introduced me, made me aware of a secret society out there in California that is a completely ludicrous secret society called Eclampus Vitus. And they claim to be a pseudo-Masonic thing. They date back to the gold rush. They claim to be a bunch of rednecks. They wear red underwear, and they're very funny, but they actually distort California history. They distort Moorish history. They are the great distorters. And every governor of California becomes a member. It's a rite of passage if you're the governor. And I'm sure if there was a melanated governor, he would become part of it too, because it's just something that all the governors do. But it is a very humorous but very sinister secret society. And then they appear now I've tied them to UFOs of the 1800s, and the whole Zeppelin sort of, this is pre-Zeppelin, and it's not exactly on the subject we're discussing, but it's a very interesting subject. And of course, one of the ones who feeds them this technology, according to the book, is a mysterious man named Wilson. And of course, the name Wilson appears in my research for those of you who've read it, and it also appears in a book called Project Saucer, where the mysterious facilitator of the UFO technology is a man named Wilson. So this is a theme that appears. So I would say this would tell me, if I were to use my intuition, that the Earth-based creator of UFOs, whether they be Zeppelin-type UFOs or more modern-day ones, would be tied to this secret society, which also has a very strong gay element in it that is more subverted, but that would trace back to the Aleister Crowley gay element. And what I'm saying is it's part of the more clandestine reversal of wisdom that, like, say, if you look at all these UFOs and all this stuff, it's sort of like we're under attack. We're under attack psychologically, if not physically, and we're under attack legally. But it's all covert. It's covert, hidden manipulation.
Hey, Peter,
Yep.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. Use your intuition. First of all, when you look at in Moorish science, let's try to come to simple terms where the general masses will kind of understand this. The Moors have always traveled by plate lines, and plate lines are simply what you would call push and pull magnetic lines of the alignments of the planets. They would ride the wave of those lines, which is really, in basic speak, you would say, by folding the universe. And the folding of the universe is, because I know you kind of understand where I'm coming from. It's just simply using the gravity pushes and pulls of the different planets in their alignment. This is why also why cosmology is the foundation of all ancient religion, because it's actually traveling the planets. It's really not worshiping anything. It's planetary travel. And so also when you look into your ancient Lemuria and even beyond that, and like Dr. Delbert Blair said with Mars, etc., Venus, and even with your moons around Saturn, the great teacher, that actually what we call the karmic wheels that keep the corruption from coming outside this particular universe until we evolve a little bit more. The fundamental of even some of those devans, which some of us called in the ancient days devans, or what they call them, flying carpets, which is really those vessels. Some of them are still running that are over 2,000 years old right today. And you know, and I know, that some of what we call today our watches that we carry on our arms, we had time instruments that we carried on our arm that measured the movement of 19 planets all at one time. And when what we call the hour hand right now, when that made one rotation, it made one rotation in a cycle of 30 years. So you already know that the technology is really more advanced than what they're coming from. And like Dr. Blair said, yes, Hikupta, what they call Egypt, is actually Hikupta, where they get the symbol of the Coptic cross, which is also the zodiac. People's concept that it's in Mizraim on the other side of Wex to Mexum, and it's right here in the area that, just like Dr. Blair said, in what you call the Grand Canyon. That's why they won't let anybody there. And they're going into old archives and digging up old technology and trying to figure it out. This is the real deal with it, where there those types of movies like Indiana Jones with the art that everyone's looking for, because actually those are radon boxes that are used for generating power for cities, etc. Even running cities without what you call electrical wires, pulling from the energy directly from the earth.
Well, this is exactly what you started off saying, is you're talking about chi energy, and of course chi is directly equivalent phonetically to, if you pronounce it, is to ki, as in kemet, qigong, which is something that I study, but also that also relates to the vril Dr. Blair was talking about. So it's certain energy, it's harnessing that sacred energy. And right now we're living in a time where too much of that sacred energy has been co-opted, whether it be religious institutions, or we could even say our Area 51 people have co-opted that sacred energy and turn it into flying craft that can be used to intimidate, if not destroy the population.
Well, they've now changed it also to S4, as you know, and adults say they're still making people every day. They're creating monsters there. They're creating monsters that they're sending out to the 12th moon of Jupiter. They're sending monsters up to the moon. In fact, they just got kicked off the moon, if you remember. It was about 4 months ago, again, where they had this big explosion on the moon, and they wanted everybody to look at it. Well, anytime they want you to look at something, it's got to be a diversion or something else going on. They had to destroy one of their little bases that they put up there because there were some of the people from the Pleiades that told them to make it a national thing and to show it on TV when they destroyed this thing. They have had relics up there of robots that had negroid-looking heads, The brother Hakim knows too. They had a supposedly, it's very controversial, a Negroid-looking woman that was a pilot of a mile-long, I think it was, spaceship that's supposed to be over 1 billion years old. They found everything up there. We don't even understand. We are nothing but a zoo that is now going to be, the cages are going to be emptied. Those that couldn't make the grade, they'll have to stay with their old Earth. Those that can make the grade will have to go with the new Earth. That's why people are told now to change their diets, to begin to get into meditation, to begin to understand what the cells are really like, because everything is changing. They got a big cloud now of chemtrails all around the planet. I trust the Chinese more than I do NASA. Never a straight answer. They went up in a spaceship in November, and it showed that the Earth looks just like Venus because it's got a cloud layer around it. That's why you're getting global warming in that sense, because nothing can escape. The CO2 level is almost, when it gets up to 22 milligrams of CO2, everybody's going to be dead here. They're trying their best to stave off the inevitable. The planet is going from the third dimension to the fifth dimension. People are waking up. The kind of souls that are being incarnated here now are not dumb. They understand how to use Masmac, how to use Vril, how to use Key the correct way again, and they're doing everything they can to make things electrical. And as long as we have an energy coming from the sun now that's putting out magnetism, electricity is going to fail. It's going to start in January. It's going to start in December. And pretty soon we're going to have blackouts and brownouts, and all these things about sovereignty are needed. But what is more needed is to wake up to the dangers that can be present if we don't come together in consciousness to show we have cohesion and are worth getting past the so-called Illuminati and to the real illumined ones. As I say, I don't even know how to begin with this, but that's the way I look at it.
Well, there's a lot of obstacles, and I guess I would like to bring it back to the astrology we began with, and that is the Pluto in Capricorn right now. And Pluto moving through Capricorn, takes a good couple of decades practically, and that means a change for the positive, but a slow, long, transmutative change. Transmutative meaning, purging the bad and bringing it into the good is of governments, institutions, religions, and corporations. This is what we're going through for the next 15 to 20 plus years.
I don't think it's really the horseman of the apocalypse is back, because you've got the economic collapse going on, you've got droughts and floods and famines to follow, you've got earth changes going on, you have financial and economic collapse, the euro and Amero and so on and so forth. All of these are just showing a way that these draconic individuals and the Illuminati who worship those gods who are the dracons want to try to do something to keep this planet on an old state of consciousness. I don't think it's going to take that long. I think in the next 2 years you're going to see a separation on this planet. This is why the oil is leaking out. The oil is not to do with any fossil fuel and all this kind of foolishness. It is actually the effluvium. It is a hyaluronic acid this planet uses to keep the tectonic plates supple. What is happening is we're getting a new Earth. And I don't want to get so way out of this. And I simply state, I think you got 3 years. And I think as this 3 year going on, you're going to see people dying like mad, because those who will not wake up, change their diet, get into meditation, stop getting these shots and stop using these cell phones without any kind of way to save them, they're going to die of cancers, they're going to die of advanced tumors, they're going to die of ignorance. And this is a whole point where concentrated thought and those who are Moors and those who remember Lemuria and those who remember the battles that were fought, it begins to awaken their consciousness. It's time to take a stand. And as I say, I wouldn't even know how to even begin to talk in the modern terms, because of what's happening now is going to change modern history and ancient history.
Peace.
I want to just interject something before we get into it. I extended the show past 11 o'clock, so we're going on past 11 o'clock. This is monumental, and the family is because after 11 the stream cut, so I extended it so that doesn't happen. So the family that's on the phone lines, if anything happens at 11 o'clock, just call right back in. The family that's in the chat and listening on the computer, you're all good. Don't worry about it. You don't have to do anything. So
and we definitely are going to be getting in that 11:11 meditation, concentrated thought is at its 8th tonight. So believe me, one is going to be monumental. Please do continue.
No, before you continue, being that this is the first show, please, every single one of you, leave information about your websites and your contacts before we go further. You know what I'm saying? We need to because the family They're asking about Peter Moon's books. They want Delbert Blair's lectures. They're asking about Hakim. So,
peace. All right, let me just try and rip it up as quick as possible because there's a lot. Hopefully everybody got a pen because I'm just going to go through it relatively quickly. The first thing I want to mention, where you could go to get all 13 books of the Journey of the Moorish Paradigm. You could download them for $5, instant download right away. You go to World Fair, FAIR, Mall, MALL.com/MU, MU. Or you could go to Moorish Bazaar, Moorish, BAZAAR.com. I got tons of free stuff up there. You could get to download the first book for free that I wrote. Also, I got 24 hours of videos of all kinds of stuff you could just look at. It's just constantly streaming 24/7 nonstop. So you could just sit some young person down, let them look at it, let them learn. Also, we have 1000streams.com. That's 1-000, the number 1000streams.com. We stream in live video lectures all over the place. This Saturday, we streaming Brother Azariah at Black Gold. He's going to have Brother Booker T. Coleman there talking about melanin and the mind and what's going on right now. We're going to be streaming that live over 1000streams.com. We got the twins' information up there, their videos, all kinds of stuff up there. So check that out. Then also we got a blessing. What's that?
I didn't mean to cut you off. I want to leave.
1000streams.com.
Yeah, the 1000streams.com. Look at it the same way that we're on this show right now. We're all building. Think about in the future that you're going to see this physically in video form. 1000 Streams is a Moorish theater right now.
That's right.
Has lecture streaming of powerful information. And
we got Brother Polite, telekinesis, pyrokinesis, the workshop up there. We got Delbert Blair's first lecture when he spoke in Brooklyn. We got all kinds of information. We got more to come. We got 11 channels in the wings just waiting to come, talking about everything from mushrooms and ancient commit to martial arts to all kinds of stuff. The Zulu Nation got their own channel. Black Dot got their own channel. The Pills, everybody got a channel. So we about to take it to another level. And 1000 streams not only to your computer and your laptops, but we able to stream over hundreds of cell phones. So look it up, go to 1000 Streams and download the free software so that you can view these streams live. I'm talking about real time while it's going on your cell phone. If you run an Android system, if you run a Nokia, if you run a Windows Mobile, we can stream it live to your cell phone. If you want to sell tickets, make commissions, fill out the form right there on the website. We're going to hook that up where you can sell tickets. You do your Facebook blast. You can make money, so on and so forth. I can't get into all of it right now. The next thing I want to mention real quick is a blessing that has come amongst the Moors in this day and time, along with what Dr. Blair and I was talking about, that will help save us in this day and time in terms of survival, in terms of food. His name is called Moringa, and Moringa is an ancient tree. I believe it's truly the tree of life. It speaks about the New Jerusalem, about there being a tree that produces fruit 12 months of the year. You got the moringa tree. I can't even get into it right now. It's so deep, but believe me, they used to bury the moringa with the ancient pharaohs. And I have testimonials up there of brothers across the country with diabetes, high blood pressure, glaucoma. This plant is off the hook. You can live off this plant and water indefinitely, and the seeds from the tree purify water. One seed kernel will purify 1 liter of water. The twins already know about it. This plant is crazy. I'm on it now. I got energy that's off the Richter scale from this plant. Elders who have taken this plant, what could I say? Y'all can go and check out the testimonies. We got videos up there. We got the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine research paper up there. I did so much research on it. I wrote a book. You could download that book for free. It's called allthingsmoringa.com. Allthingsmoringa.com. The book I wrote, you could download that for free, and this plant is crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. I never seen no plant like this in my life. 10 times the vitamin A of carrots, 25 times the iron of spinach, 15 times the calcium of milk, 17 times the potassium of bananas, 9 times the protein of milk, more protein pound for pound than beef. And I'm talking about it's just green leaf. Our product is 100% green leaf powder, and the Moors used to survive off of this. This was found on the ancient Egyptian ships. It got the docket number. The ancient pharaoh who they found it, they used to bury the moringa oil with the pharaohs. And it was so valuable that when the tomb robbers robbed the tombs, they took the moringa oil out first. And then all the gold and stuff.
How do you
so
spell
this is real. It's spelled MORINGA. And the website is called allthingsmoringa.com. And when you go there, you download the free ebook. That's the book I wrote on moringa. You also could download the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine's research paper on it. They say, in their Johns Hopkins, they said it's antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, and anti-cancer. I got videos up there dealing with moringa and AIDS treatments, cancer treatment. I'm about to bring some moringa to a cancer patient tomorrow, as a matter of fact.
But
it's crazy. Yes.
Hakim.
Yes.
This is moringa is basically we used to grow a lot of it in the Everglades in the area of the land of flowers that they call Florida. This is why one of the reasons why a lot of the people here, when they get so-called wealthy, or when the corporations have robbed the people so much where they've amassed wealth, why they usually buy houses in Florida. And this is the moringa is actually what they refer to as the fountain of youth.
That's right. It will be. I'm gonna hit y'all off with something real quick. Y'all ain't gonna believe this. Manny Pacquiao, the Philippine boxer who's supposed to fight Mayweather, all that, they thought he was on steroids, all that. Come to find out, he was on moringa. In the Philippines, they call it malunggay, which means mother's friend. And that thing, it gives you so much stamina. They thought it was steroids. That's how powerful
he wasn't declared illegal. He wasn't in violation of anything, right?
Right, he wasn't, because he was just taking moringa.
Right.
He was taking that malunggay. They call it malunggay in the Philippines. They know all about it. That's why in World War II, they couldn't stop the Filipinos. Remember, that's how they came out with the 45 automatic became standard issue, because the 38s couldn't stop them.
And I'm
telling y'all, this moringa is off the hook. And when you go to the website, allthingsmoringa.com, you'll see the article I got on there about the ancient Egyptians. I got abstracts and medical papers on there talking about moringa and herpes treatment, moringa and ovarian cancer, moringa and just everything. I got videos up there. I got the Discovery Channel's documentary video up there you can view for free. All that's up there. You spend a lot of time on that. And listen to the testimonials. I want you to hear real people suffering from real things in real time right now who took moringa, and it worked so quick. And I truly believe that it has something dealing with the interaction with the sun, because I've been taking it this whole summer, and this whole summer when the sun was beaming down on me, it felt as if like I was a battery just recharging. And I knew it was the interaction of the moringa in my system with the sun. It has over 46 antioxidants. According to Ayurvedic science in India, it cures over 300 different diseases with 539. They say it's the most nutritious plant ever found. But like I said, it's too much to go into. Check it out. All the information is right up there on the website. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you.
And, I think that's enough for now.
Okay, this is Blair. If I may now, may I give my coordinates?
Go ahead.
All right.
We have,
first of all, the web address is www.themetacenter2.com. That's www.meta, short for metaphysical, META, the word center, and the number 2.com. Our landline is 708-422-6685. 708-422-6685. We also have 3 products. One are magnets. We have 18 different kinds. Another are diodes to protect you from the radiation emitted from almost everything you're using now, from cell phones and laptops to televisions and high def and motors and wirelesses and microwave ovens and video game stations and MP3 players and home wiring circuit breakers and washers, dryers. Almost all these things are emitting extra low frequencies. And I have a tape out called Elves, Not Elves, Are Killing You. They're worried about trolls and goblins and these things. Every time you use a cell phone, you're poisoning yourself. It's on the tympanic membrane and all like that. So we also have diodes. We also have something called a diode plaque. Now, there are 12 different kind of diodes. Some even to protect your homes from some of these wind towers, which the acronym for that is Ground Wave Emergency Management, which means they'll stop your car because any car made since 89 will stop because it has a computer in it, and it'll fry your battery. And if you're using a cell phone at the time, or if you're not even, if you hit it high enough, you'll be on your ground vomiting and everything else, because these waves are extra low frequencies, and they're built to try to kill you or to control you. We also have a diode plaque, which anyone with a kitchen needs, because if you're buying canned goods and things that are no good, it will put it on there. It will take the badness out. It may not give anything good, but it'll stop the poisons from contaminating it. It's also a quick way to make things that are bad good up to 18 inches above the surface. And last but not least, we have what is called magnetic products. And we're finding out that most of the cells now that can stand the radiation need magnetic energy. They need org energy, which is the original energy from the Creator, but we'll settle for magnetic energy. And if you have magnetic energy, you can begin to take the sunlight more. You can begin to charge up things that have batteries using magnetic energy, which will give an afterglow, and I'm saying this very slowly. It will give you light when the radiation towers called electricity go out, because we have to get to a magnetic frequency. What they're not telling you is we have two suns now. They're highly magnetic. It's going to knock out their electrical towers. This is why I say you don't have 5 and 6 and 7 years before a big change comes about. But magnetism gives off an energy itself, which you can see as an afterglow. They don't want to tell you that because they think you're going to be in darkness. But if you have magnetism in your body, if you can get out all the in your body, then you can begin to use that. So anyway, as the brother said again, I could go on with this, and we all think we have something good. At least it's good things, not bad things. We all should get together and compare some notes. But that's again, www.themetacenter.com.
To the very end. You go to the left.
All right. Brother Primo, are you there? Yes, I am. Okay. Now, when I started a new show, so how do I get the new show started? It's already past the time, and it's on the stream can't hit us. Okay, there should be a new show. It should be starting already. You have to call it in to start it, so you have to disconnect from this show. Everybody from this show will have to wait for you to start the new show and call back in about 2 or 3 minutes. You understand?
Okay.